You're listening to PlayStation Power. I'm Georgia. With me is Greg.
Hello, everybody.
And just as I was telling Greg, I wanted to do something special for the intro on this episode, but I fucking forgot and I dropped the goddamn ball. So that's fun. Maybe when it comes around to Yakuza 2, we'll get around to that intro there. Anyway.
Well, I have an observation about that, actually. I'm surprised that by 2005 they felt the need to still rename games, because we were talking about that in the Super NES podcast recently about how many older games had different names. But
right.
I think the Japanese name for this game is beautiful.
I definitely see why they changed the name for this.
Yeah, I suppose so, but still.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those games that makes sense. Also, like, the name might not be like super catchy or anything, but it definitely, like, once you hear it, like, you honestly make an instant connection, and it sounds very appealing, you know?
Oh yeah,
like,
sure.
You know,
yeah.
Yakuza.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a game about the Japanese mafia. Like, oh, okay, yeah, let's see what this is. I mean, there are other games that also have Yakuza in the title or whatever.
True.
And some of them are on PS2, so maybe we'll get around to them at some point, and some of them are rough, but
yeah.
Anyway, we are talking about the Sega-made game Yakuza. This game was released on the PlayStation 2 originally in Japan, December 8th, 2005. North America saw it September 5th, 2006. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Australia saw it September 14th, 2006. And Europe saw it September 15th, 2006. There was also a HD remaster, I guess you could say, done for the PlayStation 3, only in Japan, November 1st, 2012. And the Wii U actually saw that HD remaster only in Japan, August 8th, 2013, which is interesting. That would be really cool to see that over here, but I guess the series, well, I don't want to say the series dropped off, but I guess the series was not as popular as it is now, maybe, to warrant a translation for that. Who knows?
Yep. I'm looking at some
maybe,
video.
Maybe Nintendo didn't like the original localization, and they said, no, we don't want that filth on here. But there's also, yeah.
I'm sorry. Just to say two things real quick. One, I'm looking at some video of the PS3 remaster right now, and it looks very good, very beautiful. But so I thought, so it seems like they did a great job with that. Two, I think Nintendo was still starved for software on the Wii U. They probably paid Sega just to bring the game over here forward. Well, I mean, in Japan at least. But so like you said, I think the series was probably not popular enough then to warrant it now. Now
it's a pretty good platform for around that time, though, because the Wii U was the most powerful out of the three, that being the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, as well as, of course, the Wii U being in that group, with it having things like 1 gig of RAM and shit like that. So I think that technically might be the best version of it without including the remake, which, speaking of which, the remake, which is called Yakuza Kiwami over here. I believe Kiwami is extreme in Japanese.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Right. So that was released on the PlayStation 3 in Japan only, January 21st, 2016. I think we've had this conversation before. They still make certain games for PS3, even if it's been released on PS4. Probably, and again, I think you brought this up, Greg. It might be because of the wages that people get over in Japan are more about just being able to live life instead of getting extra money for spending it on luxurious items or whatever. Who knows? I don't know. I think that was a guess from you or something, but yeah, so it was released on PS3. Also, the same date in Japan, it was released on the PlayStation 4, January 21st, 2016. Worldwide release was August 29th, 2017. And a version for Windows being released on Steam is coming out worldwide February 19th, 2019. So in the near future, we will see Yakuza Kiwami, because they released Yakuza 0 on PC,
Yep.
and
Yep.
a good amount of people bought it, and they're like, hey, well, why not just bring over Kiwami to PC as well? It's supposed to actually be out by now, but something happened because they made an announcement, and they're like, oh, it's going to be coming out, and I think they pushed it back for some reason, I believe.
From what I heard, they discovered a last-minute bug, so they wanted to make sure that it ran smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to make sure that it ran smoothly.
There was a problem with Yakuza 0 on PC where it would stutter every so often. So if they fix that, that's awesome. Because I mean, I hardly saw the stuttering issue with Yakuza 0, but I'm sure there are a lot of people who saw a much worse version of that stuttering.
That's what really makes it
or
hard
freezing,
to.
But
that's what makes it hard to debug PC games these days, because there's so many combinations of systems out there.
No, what makes it hard to have prevent these problems is that, and I mean, I understand the case here because Sega is a mainline console games developer and publisher, but a good portion of the problem is that these games are being ported from a console version to a PC. If it was the other way around, and a lot of developers will agree with me, if a game is originally made for PC and then is ported to specific consoles, that creates less problems because you're making this like baseline version and then, oh, okay, let's make it for PS4. All right, well, we need to optimize it for PS4. What do we need to do? Whereas the other way around, you optimized it for PS4, so now you got to like reverse engineer it for PC, but it's not. It makes it more difficult. It's a lot more work. So, I don't know all the technical shit, but I have a basic understanding of how things like that work. Where if it was originally made on PC, porting it would technically be easier for consoles. But whatever, let's not get into shit like that.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just because they're Japanese and they made it originally for consoles. It makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
not stating that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that it's easier to do it the other way around. Take a look at the Dark Souls port when that came out. Oh boy, that was pretty bad. Anyway, yeah. Again, there's a lot of technical shit you can get into with stuff like that, but that's not what this podcast is about. This is about Yakuza and how it was developed by Sega, and the Kiwami remake was developed by Sega CS1. Of course, the publisher was Sega. The publisher for the remake in Japan was Sega. In North America was Sega of America. And in PAL territories, funny enough, or interestingly enough, this was published by Deep Silver. So I guess, I don't know, I guess Sega didn't have as good a presence in Europe for this for some reason, or...
I think so also.
I don't know.
Yeah, but Deep Silver also has a very good reputation.
Deep Silver is pretty big and...
Yeah. So.
What are they? Are they German-based or in Belgium or something?
Let me look it up like real quick. They are located in... let's see.
They're somewhere on the map there.
They actually have 3 headquarters.
Yeah, but which one's the main one?
Probably the German location.
Okay.
They also have headquarters in England, and in Illinois.
Yeah. No, I believe their main headquarters is in Germany.
Yep. Well, their division of Koch Media, which is definitely German. So I think you're right.
Yeah. Anyway, Yakuza. What is Yakuza? Oh boy, if you don't know what Yakuza is at this point, well, you've been missing out. But what Yakuza is I guess you can summarize it as an open world beat 'em up game.
I think it's accurate. Yep.
Obviously, the the events of the story have to do with the Japanese mafia or the Yakuza.
I'd probably use the term of action role playing, but like your term like works very well too.
I mean, at this point, every fucking game has like an experience system and leveling and shit like that. So like, action roleplay, like it's a beat 'em up with like light RPG aspects.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely plays out to be a beat 'em up. And there is a difference between an action RPG and a beat 'em up. So, but
Definitely.
again, no fucking semantics. No semantics here, Greg. You know, I'm breaking my own rule. Anyway, but yeah, there's technically 3 different versions of this. There's the original PS2 release, then there's the HD remaster that they did in Japan, and then there's Kiwami, which is an overhaul of the game. Essentially, you could say it's a remake, but I'm sure if you ask the right person, they'd say it's an overhaul that adds a bunch of extra shit. So we'll talk about Kiwami later. I played both versions. I did not beat the original game, but I beat I beat Kiwami, and I mean the story is almost 100% the same. Let's be honest here, Kiwami is the better version. Again, we'll get into that later. But Yakuza, the original PS2 game. So in Yakuza, you are playing as Kiryu Kazuma, or Kazuma Kiryu. Sorry, I did this thing again when I did the Yakuza 0 cover. I did that again, where I said his name the Japanese style, which is family, and then individual name. But yeah, this game is known as, I forgot to say this before, this game is known as in Japan Ryuga Gotoku, which translates into like a dragon. It makes more sense when you talk about the spin-off games, because some of the spin-off games are like before the Yakuza was a thing, or it does not center around the Yakuza. So calling some of those games Yakuza whatever would not make sense. So yeah, there's a lot to get into about the spin-off stuff, and maybe we'll have an episode just based off of Yakuza spin-off games, considering a lot of them haven't even come over here in North America. But yeah, you play as Kazuma Kiryu, who is part of the Yakuza, or was. Alright, so we're gonna get into this thing where I keep confusing a lot of the storyline shit, because I played a bunch of these games, and also I'm playing them back to back, because right now I recently finished Kiwami, but I'm working on Kiwami 2, and I'm also working on Yakuza 4. So and also I recently talked about Yakuza 0 on the Genesis Gems Patreon episode that they did recently. So there's that. So trying to wrap my head around all of this again is going to be difficult for me. I think at this point is he ex-Yakuza? No. He is Yakuza. When you start the game, he is Yakuza.
Is, yes, yep.
Because in Yakuza 0, there's a whole fucking crazy event that fucking happens. So that's what confuses me. But I remember now, because you start out with Shinji and you gotta go collect money. This localized version has a bunch of shit to it. So the first thing is the international version, which it's the same between the European and the North American version. The way that they localized it, they added more vulgarity into the script for no reason, where there are instances of some characters swearing where there was none of the sort in the original Japanese script. I don't know why they did that. That's a thing. But they also... This is one of those... this is an era... There are different eras of Japanese games when they come over here. Like, there's the era of Japanese games in PlayStation games and other games of that era where they just outright don't want to claim that it's Japan. And they'll say, oh, it's in Europe or it's in the United States or whatever, which never made any sense. And then there's the era of Japanese games where they decided to bring on an English voice cast to, like, redub the whole game, which that's not specifically a problem, but the way that they do it could be a problem. Especially, here's an interesting example for this game. They brought in Mark Hamill to voice Goro Majima, which does not make any fucking sense if you know the series, because Majima's supposed to be this, no, there's nothing wrong with Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is amazing, but the way that they wanted him to read the lines did not fit with the character of Majima, and I see a lot of people clash about this subject, because I personally don't think he fit the character, but a lot of people will say that it was a good performance for the character.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, it was a great performance. Like, what is, like, yes, I agree with you. It kind of seems a bit strange because I've heard the voice. I'm like, wait a second, that's. I think I know who that is. But
Majima's supposed to basically be crazy, and Mark Hamill's doing that, but he's not doing the right type of crazy. Like, if you play Kiwami, if you play all the Japanese games, you'll see the way that Majima is supposed to be.
Okay.
And when you go back to this, you'll look at it and be like, yeah, no, this is weird. So Majima's supposed to be all over the place, and you kind of get that, but it just the voice acting. This is one of the reasons why I say Kiwami is much better, because it just has the Japanese voice acting with subtitles.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry, I had to burp there. That's why I stopped for a second. But yeah, there's shit like that. But also things that they've done, they changed the script because of things that people would not understand over here.
Right.
For some reason, they still use the honorific stuff. Like, you have as to formally address somebody, you use things like san and whatnot. So, like, it would be Kiryu-san. But in this game, they still used honorifics, but they used everybody's first name. Whereas in Japanese culture, or in Japan, or whatever you want to say, they use family names. So, like, it's technically like saying, Mr. So-and-so, but the Japanese way. Whereas over here, for some reason, they kept the honorifics, but they use people's first names. Also, when you first start that game up, and the first thing, you watch the cutscene and shit, and then you're playing the game, and you have Shinji by your side, which is, like, he's like part of the family that you're part of, but you're higher ranked up, and he fucking calls you Anaki. But it's just one of those weird things where there's probably a good chance you don't know what an Anaki is. You probably assume that, oh, he's probably calling him boss or something. And I'm still not 100% sure what an Anaki is. I'm not sure if it's like a position or if he is just calling him boss. But it's just one of those things where they put something in the script that didn't make sense for them to put in there. You know what I mean, Greg?
Sure.
Like, using Japanese words that people wouldn't understand, but then them changing other parts that they wouldn't think people would understand, and it just confuses my mind as to why they localized the game this way. And it doesn't completely ruin the game. It just makes you ask questions if you have like any sort of knowledge on, like, Japanese things, like how the Japanese language or whatever.
Well, I'm sure translating the game was a real challenge, because, like,
Sure, but if you look at the more modern Yakuza games, they do it much better on how they get around, like, having it like Western audiences understand some things.
Well, I think at this point they were sort of trying to, I think it's probably a combination of like uh, charting out into trying to uncertain territory because of the nature of this game, and also because of the fact that they weren't really sure what to do and what to translate, and not translate or explain, and bring it over to the West because like, I was going to make this point later on, but you already brought it up a little bit. This is a very Japanese game.
Certainly.
They took, the director even said like he wanted to produce a game that directly portrayed original Japanese culture and also presented like a very Japanese worldview. This game takes place in a fictional recreation of one of the most famous areas of Tokyo, by the way. So,
this takes place in I believe the fake part of Tokyo. They call it Kamurocho.
Right, which is actually based off Kabukicho, which is one of the biggest entertainment areas like Tokyo. But anyway, so it's like they had that challenge because they reset a very Japanese game, and they were trying to keep the Japanese of it while trying to explain certain things in English. And being the first game of a series of its time period, they screwed up in some areas, but I think so it makes sense that they got better with that later on as the series developed, and they got their feet under them.
They also changed someone's name, and this might. I feel like I might know the reason why they changed someone's name, but the person that they changed their name would be Shintaro Kazuma. They changed his name to Shintaro Fuma. You'll hear a lot of like, oh, Fuma Oyabun and shit like that. This person is supposed to be like technically the father figure of Kazuma. So I guess the reason might be there might be confusion between Kazuma and Kazuma. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you already knew this, Greg, that Fuma's name was actually changed to Fuma. Because,
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, his name is actually Kazuma, Kazama, which could be confused with Kazuma, which is Kazuma. So
right,
I think that might be the reason why they changed his name.
Right.
Yeah. So this the story is here that you are in the Yakuza and you're doing a job. You got to collect money from people. You go and do that and whatnot, and then your like best friend for life calls you up, and it's like, did he call you up? I forget how he God damn it. I forget how the beginning. I know the events of the beginning. I just don't remember. Does he call you and tell you like I need you here right now? Is that what happens?
That's essentially right. But
okay.
And
then you go to the offices of the Tojo clan, I believe.
Yep.
And fucking Nishiki, his real name Nishikiyama. Nishiki is a nickname. Fucking kills the leader of the Tojo clan. So apparently Kazuma, I should say, wants to take the blame for him for some reason, and you go to jail for 10 years, which 10 years for a murder of a Yakuza. The police really love you then. You're only going to jail for 10 years for killing a Yakuza.
Well, there were mitigating circumstances, considering what your boss is trying to do to your friend. So I think I can probably understand that.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that they don't. When it comes to Yakuza, the rules technically, quote unquote, kind of change for that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure,
that
too.
So like if they killed somebody innocent, I'm sure they would have gone much longer. So he goes to jail, and all that shit happens, and after 10 years he gets out, and what is this? This happened in 1990. Like 95 or something like that. 94.
Something like that. Yeah.
And then jump 10 years later, it's 2005 or whatever. So
which was the present day like when the game was released. So
yes, it was the same year that this game was released. And shit happens. Shit hits the fan.
Very fast, as a matter of fact. Like
that happens a lot in these games.
But yeah, so you discovered that recently while you were in jail, there was a crime from the Tojo clan's private bank. 10 billion yen got stolen. Which, even though yen's not as much a U.S. money, obviously that's still
a lot of money.
That's still a fuck ton of money. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you tell me that 10 billion yen has been stolen? Please tell me. No, please. Like, honestly, tell me that 10 million yen has been stolen from the bank account.
10 billion yen's been stolen?
Shut the fuck up. That's like one of the fucking things that they put in. When you start the game up, if you let it sit, one of the demo reel things is like, 10 billion yen. Can you tell me why 10 billion yen has been stolen from the bank account? Shut the fuck up! And it's like, well, that sets the tone for the fucking localization. Yeah, like, actually, one of the first cutscenes you watch before you start playing, I think, or no, when you're going back to, like, your bar, or the bar you prefer, I think there's like a scene where people are trying to beat money out of somebody, and it's just like every fucking sentence, like somebody's swearing or whatever, and it's just like totally not how the original script is written. It's just so weird. Again, that they just decided to like add profanity to lines.
Right.
So interesting. I had originally a save. I forget. I think it was like chapter 11. But I wanted to get a fresh pair of eyes on the original version again. So probably like last month or whatever, I slowly started playing the game over again. Also to get some footage. But one of the first times you're fighting the person that you're trying to collect money from, and it's this old guy who just randomly picks up a golf club and starts trying to fight you. And in Yakuza Kiwami, that fight is so quick and easy. But in the original game, it just goes to show how much more difficult it is, or just how different it is. That that guy was like actually trying to whip my ass, and like he got a bunch of shots in on me, and I got decently hurt. But it's just so weird because in Kiwami, it's just like that type of thing was just like, oh no, boom, boom, boom. All right, that fight's over. And you'll even see in the footage, because I did already start editing it like a couple months ago, that that fight will go on longer than the fight that I had in Kiwami. So that was interesting. There, you'll see that a couple of times, that the original game, the fighting will go on longer than the fight in Kiwami.
I was definitely gonna talk about the difficulty of this game later on, but just to finish up the plot summary like real quick here, I think. Pretty much the game revolves around, after that point, an orphan girl that you find shortly afterwards, whose name is Haruka. Haruka. Yeah. Okay, sorry. She's believed to know what happened to the money, so and you take it upon yourself to.
I don't think she knows what happened to the money. The connection.
She's believed to have, like she's believed to know about it. So
maybe.
So anyway,
because the major connection here is that she's looking for her mother, and her mother turns out to be the person that Kazuma's looking for, because she went missing.
Yep. So.
And that plays into why the money is missing.
Yep.
You figure out at the end what happened.
Yep, so. Exactly. Yep. So the game goes on from there in its own like crazy plot. I was actually kind of reminded a little bit about Metal Gear Solid, because how like crazy the plot is in points, but it definitely.
Yes and no. It's definitely like Japanese weird.
Oh yes, very. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, we really can't talk too much more about it without spoiling things. So I think we can. I think we can probably leave it off here. So
I didn't realize, but the original game is actually lacking a lot of like sub-stories being the optional missions you can do.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of optional
There's
missions you can
there's
do.
optional yeah, there's optional missions and stuff, and there's like still
Right.
optional stuff you can do in the game that aren't really missions, but just
Right.
like little like activities or whatever you could do. But I didn't realize until I went back to it like how limited it is compared to the remake or any of the other baseline games further in the series.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, so the gameplay of this game has very is both good and bad. I think in the sense that the game comprises of three very different, distinct yet connected modes, which I think are called like event, adventure, and battle modes, and they work well. And all of them by themselves like work all right. But I think some of the clunkiness of this game definitely caused for me, and we'll talk about that later on. I think it's because the way the game tries to integrate all three of those modes together. I imagine the remake probably does a much better job of handling this. So
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, you're running around the streets of Tokyo, but the problem is it's one of those games where the camera is
yeah,
isolated. It's one of those yeah, the camera just stays in place. It's like Resident Evil.
yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So,
Yeah. I guess still in 2005 they didn't think of having camera control and having the camera orbit around the character instead of making it like a security camera that's staying in
Right.
place just tracking where you are. So that's really weird.
I'm sure if I played this back when it first came out in 2005, when that was a norm, I would have been fine with that. Trying to play the game now in 2019, I'm like, oh, this is rough.
Yeah, it kind of is, but they do it in a good way though, because if you're running one direction and the camera changes when you go to a different area and you're still holding the stick one way, you'll still be going that way instead of, like fucking up the controls and be like, oh no, you're going this way now. Because I know a bunch of games that have cameras like this where you're holding the stick one way and then it's somehow you just turned around and went the way that you just came from. It's like, fuck. So at least they make good on that.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. That was a good effort. So, yeah, so the let's see, how can I describe the modes? The modes here. Event mode is kind of the main open world gameplay that George was like talking about. Like, just like like going around the city and whatnot. And every now and then you can also every now and then you can also find random foes that you have the choice to fight or not. And fighting them is usually encouraged. They're encouraged because by doing so, you earn cash you can use to purchase equipment, and also experience. So, and then also certain fights seem to have a leader. It's kind of like classic Zelda, with like you trigger a whole bunch of ghosts, and one of them's the leader, but you don't know who the leader is until you actually kill it. Like all of a sudden, all the other ones just go poof. Kind of like similar here, like if you get lucky to find the leader, if you get lucky enough to find to beat the leader, it ends the fight like right away. But Flames and the henchmen left, so that was so I always loved it when that happened.
That's not 100% true. I think that stuff happens more in like when you're going around an area for the story and you have to fight these guys that are deliberately placed in areas. Like when you come across random battles, they don't really have that type of system. They might have a leader sometimes, but if you defeat the leader, they don't really run away or anything. But I think that happens sometimes when you're in those specific areas where you're running through a building or whatever and you're fighting people. It happens sometimes that there is some sort of leader, and if you defeat them, the others might run away. That happens more often in the newer games.
Oh, really?
Some of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of them, if you defeat, like if the character is powerful enough, if it's like a mini boss and you defeat him, the other guys might run away once you defeat him. But usually I take care of the smaller guys or the weaker guys, I should say, because they're just more of a nuisance.
Right. Of course. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, you may be right about that connection. Connection. I never really put it together, but it makes sense. But yeah. So it also uses a kind of a quick time event system during the fights also, which is very
not
curious?
always, but sometimes. Sometimes you'll come across like quick time events in different forms. So my least favorite is when you use a heat action. Heat action being you have a separate bar from your health bar, and it's kind of like energy in a sense or whatever, and you get it from beating people up and whatnot. Thank God they made the heat stuff much better in the newer games, because in this game, if you're not doing anything, it fucking essentially just drains really quickly.
Oh yeah.
But But heat actions are really cool because you can do things like throw people into walls, or I forget if you could do it with weapons in this game, but I know it's like throw them into walls or throw them into fucking lampposts, and you know. You get like a quick time event-esque thing where a button will show up. It won't like it won't have like a separate cutscene, but it'll just randomly show up and be like, oh, hey, press triangle again. It's like, fuck, I always miss that because the window's so quick, and I also forget that that's a thing. So I always miss that.
Yeah.
It adds an extra attack, basically.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I personally hate QuickTime events. Period. It's like I'm just not a fan of them.
Yeah, that specific one wasn't done well. But then there's other ones where if you're trying to grab a really like a huge guy, you gotta spam X, and then you can you could throw him around or whatever, because if you don't do that, he just fucking belly flops onto you, which is great. The other stuff. Is more like scripted in a sense, where like you might be running through a building where there's a bunch of enemies, and then you open a door, and that might be like the opening to a boss battle or a mini boss battle where, oh, this guy has a trash can, he's swinging at you, you gotta press X so you dodge it. That one is really big on the Majima fights in this game, where specifically an example would be when you fight him at the batting cage, where he fights with his fucking tanto, his knife, or his dagger, I should say. And that one, I don't know how well you did in that fight, but I got so good at that when during the remake and other fights against Majima, I was fucking untouchable during those quick time events where like you have to push buttons to dodge his knife attacks. And the window is much smaller in the original game, but I got so good at it that I was untouchable in the remake. So there's that. That fight was really hard in the original game.
I was reminded a lot about, and this is probably not a shock since the same company developed like both franchises. I was reminded. I was reminded a lot about the Shinami games a lot.
The what?
I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. That other big open world series that Sega did. Shinobi?
I can't think of what open world game they have done.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Oh, Shenmue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, Shenmue. Yeah.
Shenmue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was reminded about like Shenmue like in parts of this game because no shock, they both done by Sega, but
I mean this is just this is them learning from Shenmue and being how do we make Shenmue better, and let's make Yakuza.
So like real quick, the other two modes I mentioned earlier, the battle mode is the underground arena stuff. We can we can do a how would you describe that, George? Just like various fights, pretty much.
They're all tournaments, I believe. You do tournaments in the.
Yep.
It's like Fight Club in a sense, but you're in an arena, and no weapons. Yeah, no weapons, no armor, I believe.
Correct. Yep.
Or I forget. I think some of the games are like no trinkets, but you can have armor. Maybe I forget.
Right.
But no armor, no weapons. shit like that. So,
Yep, and some of them you have to do to advance the game. Some of them you don't.
which is
So,
bullshit because some of them have fucking weapons that they use.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
Well-
it doesn't make any sense.
Well, nobody ever said underground fight club like to be fair. So, but
Those are the specific rules. No weapons. That is a rule, Greg. And it's just fucking stupid. They kind of just like it's something they must have overlooked or something. But some of them have weapons, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know you're right. So
it's dumb.
And then finally, the adventure mode of the game, which something I spent like a good deal of time on, but you probably didn't because it would have evolved. It's just basically the various mini games that are available in the game, and there's like quite a lot of mini games too. A lot of them like very fun. There's
there's a lot more in the remake. So
there's a claw crane, a batting cage, a casino with 3 different types of card games in it.
This game is really bad on letting you know where you can go and what you can do.
Right.
Whereas the newer games definitely just like they're really bright on the map and hey, this is this casino and you could go do this, and I'm sure you could look at the map and be like, oh, okay, these are all the things that you can do, but when you're playing the game, it's just really bad at letting you know. Anyway.
So I definitely had some success in earning money by playing these games to help me to buy the stuff I needed to advance. So,
yeah, I didn't really do the casino stuff again. Just not much gambling.
Yeah, it's very well done, like for what it is. I mean, like
there's a really good way of making money, and it's scripted too. You have to go to a gambling like a hidden gambling den with Haruka, and she tells you, oh, you should do even, you should do odd, and up until a certain event, like it's always correct. So what you could do is just bet all of your whatever currency it is. I think it's like wooden tags or whatever. You bet all your tags and just follow what she says until the dealer's like, oh, hold on, I gotta take a bathroom break or something. And he comes back and he has not biased dice. Dice can't be biased. They're not real. They're not.
Loaded.
They're not people. Loaded dice essentially. Where every time Haruka says even or odd or whatever, it's the opposite. So he starts cheating and then you get into a fight. But that's a really good way to make money at the beginning. You just bet all your tags on that part before the dealer leaves and comes back, and you can make a shit ton of tags.
Yep.
Yep, I'm sure you did that, huh?
I did. Yeah, I most definitely did. It didn't take me very long to figure out. Yeah, I definitely, once I figured out what was going on, I just reloaded a save and knew what to do after that point. So
there you go. Yeah,
but it helped. But so like we kind of mentioned about this earlier. This game's tough. A lot of these fights, especially around the game, are very difficult, or at least I had a hard time with them. But and combined with the controls, which, and the camera, which kind of felt like clunky and like both senses, it really added to the aggravation factor of this game. I thought, not at the point where I want to put it down, but more at the point of like, this again. But so I'm glad to hear the remake solved most of those problems.
Yeah. The original game is just pretty fucking difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I could not beat the original game. The final boss fight finally stymied me. So
I wonder how that last boss fight plays.
Oh, it's rough. So yeah, but yeah, like I got almost all the way through it.
Did you max out your stats or anything or no?
No, I didn't. I probably should.
Yeah. Usually by the time I get to the end of Yakuza, I'm either really close to maxing out what I want, or I have maxed out what I want.
I think I was pretty.
And
close
that
to
most certainly
out.
happened in Kiwami. Oh my god! When I start talking about Kiwami, I just it's great.
The development of this game is pretty interesting also, because I already mentioned the fact that how they wanted to make a very Japanese game, actually based in Japan, that kind of stuff. But they gave it they gave it a huge budget, like approximately $21 million.
It certainly shows.
Yep. And they had a hard time trying to find a platform at first to put the game onto, but then Sony approached Sega with interest in having the PS2. So, after that point, Sega started working on the PS2 for it.
Just one of those reasons why PS2 is popular.
The development team also struggled with trying to strike the fine line between like accurately portraying the Yakuza, whilst trying not to go overboard on that.
Right, they're trying to make it a more cinematic experience, so it is not 100% accurate. Of course, it's not. It's a video game, but they tried to portray some stuff accurately. And then the rest were like, we need to make a good story out of this, so...
There's one famous example where they wanted to use, they wanted to include include traditional Yakuza punishment about cutting off pinky fingers.
Yes.
Fail. But they wanted to get, but the Japanese equivalent of the ERB, whatever it's called in Japan, would not give the game a favorable rating unless they took that out. So they took it out.
Which is weird because in the later games they just fucking put that in.
Yep, I don't know.
It's a thing. It's a thing in the newer games.
I don't know. Yeah, so it's definitely strange. The music we haven't talked about yet. The music of the game is very good. I thought.
They redo some of the music and they add more music in the remake. So.
Oh, really? Cool. All right, I'll have to check that out.
But the original music is still fucking great. Yeah.
And then, then for some strange reason, I just threw a curveball, but it works. They used John Newton's version of Amazing Grace, like the closing theme. Sung in English.
Oh yeah,
which is really strange. It's like where the fuck did this come from? But
yeah.
I mean, like Amazing Grace definitely fits because it fits with the game because what the song is and the overall theme of the game and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's just it's just strange to have in here. So, but anyway, it works. But yeah. So Sega also went whole hog with advertising in this game and getting sponsorships help to offset the cost of the game. There's a lot of
you see sponsors all over the series.
Yep.
One of the I don't know if it's prominent enough, but one that's prominent to me would be Boss Coffee, which actually funny enough, years ago they had Tommy Lee Jones do a commercial for Boss Coffee in Japan.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty good too.
Right.
You have to look that up on YouTube. Actually, Japanese get a lot of celebrities that are famous over here, and have them do commercials over there. They have Arnold Schwarzenegger, Hulk Hogan, just a bunch of other people. I'm just drawing a blank on who.
Yeah,
but, you can look up like Hulk Hogan Japanese commercial. There's a few of those. Arnold Schwarzenegger was in some, like I said, and Tommy Lee Jones did that Boss Coffee commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, the most famous example of a placement I remember seeing this game is Jack Daniel's bourbon.
Yeah, they licensed alcohol and stuff in this game,
which is really cool because that kind of help. It definitely helps give the game the more adult / serious look they wanted to go for with it.
I don't know. So, I know like copyright and whatnot in Japan,
right,
is
different
than way different than over here.
Right.
So I don't know how that stuff happened, but there's a lot of shit in this game. I forget if the original had it, but in Kiwami there's you have Jack, you have like Sky.
Sky.
I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
What?
Oh, okay, like Sky Vodka?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
There's a lot. I mean, of course, there's a lot of Japanese alcohol in there as well.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember. There's just a bunch.
Yeah. I would recognize Sky, like Sky like in this game. No, it's not the original version of the game.
No, all right, maybe it's in the remake.
Yeah, which
But,
makes sense.
Yeah, it's just there's just a bunch of names you'll recognize if you are an alcoholic or you just drink once in a while. Which nobody would admit they're an alcoholic. They would just say, "No, I just drink once in a while."
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Sega's trying to get Sega's trying to get product placement anywhere in the game that they could to help to offset the cost. They approached car companies, fashion companies, a lot of other companies, but it was the booze companies that.
I mean, it kind of makes sense though, because you're going to a bar, like you want a realistic experience. All right, well, some Japanese bars serve this, and this. Okay, well, let's see if we can actually have the rights to, put those names in there.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get drunk in this game.
Which is pretty cool, actually.
I don't know if it's as annoying as it is in the remake, where if you drink too much, you just start wobbling everywhere. But you do a lot more damage if you're drunk, which is
really
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I never actually. After that happened the first time, I'm like, nope, not doing it again. So
there's also in the remakes, there's something called fuck, I keep forgetting. There's a point system by doing challenges and whatnot. So like you can exchange. They're called exchange points. I just remembered because you can exchange the points in for things, and some of that stuff I forget because Kiwami and Kiwami 2, the exchange point system really differs. Actually, in Yakuza 0, it differs too. So I'm trying to remember. There's some kind of upgrade you could get. I forget if it's in the skill tree or if it's from spending completion points or exchange points.
Yep.
Actually, some of the games are exchange points, I think, and some of them are completion points, something like that. I think they're completion points in the remake. Anyway, you exchange those points, and I forget if it's in the skill tree in this game, in the remake or what, but there's definitely a skill that like you have every level you get a higher tolerance to alcohol and you can drink more, and also at some point you just don't really get as drunk, which is nice because then you're not wobbling all over the fucking place.
Right.
Yeah, it adds a lot of extra stuff with that point system. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So like speaking about like Mark Hamill earlier, there are some other celebrities who they got also to voice characters like in this game. I'm not sure if you recognize them. Michael Madsen was voiced one of the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty much. I can't name any movies off the top of my head that he's done, but he's done like a whole bunch of TV shows and movies. I did recognize, however, like Eliza Dushku. Eliza Dushku.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, she's mostly known for Buffy. She played one of the main characters in Buffy.
Okay.
She also starred in 2 Fox series, A True Calling and Dollhouse, which are both movies both TV shows are called favorites, but of course being Fox, they never got the proper treatment or respect that they deserve. So
yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so so I like her a lot. So her. So her voice was very recognizable. Sega America kind of took a gamble with this game because because they weren't sure how well it was going to do over here. So they they did a very aggressive web and print advertising campaign. I remember all the ads for this game when it first came out. They advertised it everywhere, trying to get it sold, and and it worked. There were over 1 million copies of the game sold worldwide, so that's a pretty good success to start a series off of.
Oh, certainly. Yep.
But there was also.
Oh, go on.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, do you still want to talk about the base game? Or do you think we can jump into talking about Kiwami?
The last thing I was just gonna say real quick was the graphics, because we really haven't talked about that too much. PS2 standards, they're pretty good.
They're weird.
Yeah, but they're not horrible either.
No, they're just weird.
They kind of remind me about GTA 3 graphics, actually.
No, I would argue that they're kind of better than GTA 3 graphics. considering
about the
GTA
same.
is pretty fucking old and is a 2005
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Well, I thought the graphics were pretty similar.
I would say
actually,
the
as far as
graphics
that.
actually look better than San Andreas as well.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Well. Okay. But yeah. So yeah, the graphic. There's. I noticed the painstaking detail that Sega did trying to recreate that fictional section of Tokyo. There's a lot of
Yeah.
very small touches, like lights, signs, people, locations. Very well done as far as the graphical graphical detail in this game, because it really helps to because for like an open world game like this, good graphics are important in helping to set the location and helping to recreate the experience of it with the people and the locations and the colors and whatnot. And I thought they did a pretty good job with it. Definitely has a very lived in sense to it that that could have come out pretty badly.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a huge change in how a lot of these characters look from the the original game here to not even just the remake, but just to when they hop to the next generation PS3. The way the characters looked just really changed. And I don't know if you looked at the differences, but
well, like I said, I did look at the PS3 remaster quickly as the flicking through the podcast. Pretty nice, pretty nice graphical facelift that they give the game, I thought.
yeah. I just
I've not seen the remake, so I'm gonna have to check that out later on.
yeah, the remake is very accurate to how the characters look now.
Right.
But it's just really weird going and looking at the PS2 or the PS3 HD remaster, because the characters just look so weird. Obviously you recognize who they are, but there's just a bunch of design choices that they redesigned. Things like Majima's jacket is a different snakeskin texture. It's just so weird.
Do you think
the
overall
weird-
the change?
What's
sorry. Sorry, I was just gonna ask you, since I haven't experienced the remake, do you think overall the changes that they made in Kiwami were for the good or not?
Oh, of course, because there's a bunch of shit though to this, because the first thing about this game is that with Kiwami they rewrit the game. They redid the script and everything. I mean, it's it still follows everything the same essentially, except for certain parts of the game, but they rewrote everything. The story obviously is the same, but of course they had to change some stuff because they added things. One of the things they added was the Majima Anywhere system, which is literally Majima showing up in a random place and you fighting him. So
Weird.
yeah, it makes sense if you understand the other games, because Majima has this there's some sort of connection between Kazuma and Majima, that he kind of calls Majima big brother Majima, because Majima used to be don't want to say his boss, but that's kind of right in a sense. He used to be his superior, and they had some kind of connection between that. And Majima's so fucking hellbent on fighting Kazuma all the fucking time, because one of the things is Kazuma's been in jail for 10 years, so that even backs up his case even more, because he wants to make sure that he's not weak. So he's always looking to fucking fight him. But there are certain examples, when you go to the funeral early on in the game, there is a part when you're going through you're going through all these fucking hoops and shit, trying to get away from these enemies, and then you go back into the building, and Majima is not there originally, but he is in the remake, and he's like, well, this time you get off this time you get off easy because I'm not gonna fight you. I think he doesn't, or no, I think you might actually fight him, but he's so overpowered he kicks your ass, I think, or something like that. I forget now, but he's definitely there in the remake, but he's not there in the original. So like they rewrote some of the story to make it fit in for him to be there like almost everywhere. So like there are some things that kind of, I don't want to say ruin, but it kind of just makes the not the consistency, but like the what do you call it? Fuck, what the fuck do you call it? Jesus Christ, I can't think of it now. The continuity. It kind of like makes the continuity kind of weird, and some people actually say it's kind of like Symphony of the Night in a sense with some of the continuity gaps, which is weird. I guess might be right, but sometimes it's really funny with the Majima Anywhere system because the way that it works is, of course, they put them basically everywhere in the story now, and you fucking have to fight them on top of like other bosses and whatnot. Not at the same time, but the fights will happen close enough to each other, so it's kind of weird. But also it's really funny because the original games didn't really center much stuff around the cell phone, whereas the newer games did. So they kind of use that as well, where Majima might, like, if you fight him enough, he might call you up and be like, oh, I have a surprise for you. Why don't you, why don't you come over here or whatever? And there's one where you go to a strip club and you have to fight him, but he's dressed up like a stripper and he's fucking pole dancing. And you're like, oh, what the fuck is this? So there's shit like that happens. That's just like, yep, this is a Yakuza game. But then there's other stuff where he's hiding around the city, and you might be running around and you have this like Majima radar or whatever. So you might be just running around and randomly you'll just hear Kiryu-chan, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? When that first happened to me, he was under a giant pylon, and the pylon was shaking, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And if you go up to him and you activate it, sometimes he's in there and sometimes he's not. Sometimes he'll just leave an item for you, but sometimes he's in there and he'll fucking attack you, and it's just the weirdest thing ever. There's also different Majimas. So Yakuza Kiwami runs off of the Yakuza 0 engine, and it takes a bunch of that stuff from it, where in Yakuza 0 you had 3 different stances you could use for fighting. There was Beast, Thug, or no, I think it's Beast, Brawler, and shit, what was the other one? I think it was called Rush. And they all play differently. So Brawler is like a normal fighting style type of thing, where it's just, you're just beating people up with your fists normally, I guess you can say it like that. But then there's Beast, which is the one that I use the most, where you get into this stance and you're like this fucking crazy powerhouse. But on top of that, you don't block moves. Your block button, when you hold it, you like open your legs wide and you stand in an open stance and you clench your fists, and they're at they're kind of like perpendicular to your body, and you're holding them out and you're just taking punches to the fucking face, but they do less damage if you're in this like fucking stance. So you can get really OP with this game, and if you get a bunch of completion points, you can get some really good equipment. So I've got like this fucking crazy equipment that adds a lot of defense, and then on top of that, I've upgraded my Beast stance or whatever. So when I get into a fucking boss fight with Majima, at this point he does a lot of damage because I fought him a lot, and he like gets tougher the more you fight him, because there's a ranking system, and I think I'm at like SS now or something, and he's like really difficult. But I've powered myself up so much that when I do this stance that like where you take less damage, he's literally hitting me with like tiny slivers of health whenever he fucking hits me. So it just like, I got so OP in the late game, and I beat that game so easily just because of how OP I became. It was amazing. So there's that shit. He'll show up in different scenarios. There's one where he makes a fake zombie outbreak. So you're fighting his underlings who are dressed up like zombies and shit, and then you get to him and he's acting like a zombie and he's pretending to try to bite you, so you have to fight him off that way. There's one where he dresses up like a cop and he it's great because he searches you for weapons, and if he doesn't find any weapons, he's like, oh well, this is disappointing, I guess I can't fight you then. But if you have a weapon in your inventory, he'll see it and be like, oh, what's this, huh? I'm gonna have to take you in, and he just starts fighting you. And each of these costumes and whatnot actually has the different fighting styles, actually based off of Yakuza 0, because Yakuza 0 you can play as Majima as well, and he has his own fighting styles. So it's really cool what they did, because they integrated his fighting styles, and you have to fight against that and shit like that. So it's fucking crazy, but it's well worth it, because in the end, what happens with the Majima Anywhere system actually helps you unlock extra stuff. There's a fourth fighting stance they add in this game called the Dragon, because Kazuma is known as the Dragon of Dojima. So this is the dragon fighting style, and it's supposed to be really good, but I've unlocked a decent amount of stuff, and it's good, but it's not how I want it. But it's supposed to be overpowered, and I don't see it as being overpowered. I see it works, but it's a lot more based off of like you have to dodge and also make sure you're parrying people's attacks and shit like that. At least that's how I saw it. But when you fight Majima and you do specific things like, oh, you beat him as Cop Majima 3 times or whatever, like you'll unlock a certain thing in the abilities list for the dragon fighting style, and I haven't finished that yet because there's a lot you have to do with that. But there's the Majima Anywhere system. They added a lot of sub stories as well. Not gonna really get into that, but it's some really good writing on that part. There's also a bunch of new minigames and shit. So in Yakuza 0, there was a pocket racer. I think they're called pocket racers. There's a pocket racer type of deal, which is basically like it's like slot cars in a sense, but not exactly. There's a whole like sub story with that, but also you can just fuck around with that as well. You don't have to really follow the story for some of that. They bridged the story over to this game, and 10 years later the same people are still kind of around in a sense. Because like in Yakuza 0, you're fucking, I think you're like 20 or 21 or something, and you go randomly find this like this pocket racer thing, and you join up and you start playing with it. But there's a lot of kids and they get to know you, and in this game you actually meet them. You meet up with some of those kids that you made friends with fucking 10 years ago. Yeah, it's just really interesting, all the shit that they added in. They brought back the hostess club stuff. So like in Yakuza 0, you were able to, and like I think like Yakuza 4, they had some of that stuff too, but the way that it played was so different. In Yakuza 0, you're able to run a hostess bar or hostess club or a cabaret club. They're called a bunch of different things, but they're essentially the same, but they're all different. But this one in Kiwami, that comes back, I believe. Yeah, Kiwami, the hostess stuff comes back. You don't really run it in Kiwami. In Kiwami 2, you run a club. But part of it comes back where you can still talk to the girls and get like, you can become friends with them, and I think you could go out on dates with them, but I didn't really do much of that shit. Running the cabaret club is much more fun because you also get a bunch of money from it. But like I said, it's not in this game. I didn't even bring this up, but they recycled some stuff too. They recycled like all the original animations from the PS2 version.
Interesting.
Yeah, there are some GIFs out there that you can see that they recycled the animations, and it looks weird kind of. but like it's still fitting enough. Yeah, it's just a lot to this game that they added. Oh, I see a picture of Majima in a trash can here. Yep, that's about right. Yep. Like I said, there's a lot more, but I'm not going to get super into it. The game plays so much differently, though. Like,
it sounds
boss
like they had like, a lot
battles.
of like, you know.
What's up?
Oh, sorry. Just say it also sounds like it also sounds like that they changed some of the overall theme by adding all that like humor, like you know, like tongue-in-cheek stuff.
I mean, there's still some of that stuff in the original game, kind of, but yes, they did add a bunch of that shit because by the time Yakuza 3 came out, yeah, a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff came out. Was it Yakuza 3? Yeah, Yakuza 3 had the system where, or was it Yakuza? No, Yakuza 4 brought it back. Yakuza 3 started this whole system where if you'll get an email from a guy who found weird stuff that was going on in the city, and if you get your camera phone out, you're able to like take pictures, and this weird stuff happens. Like the first one, I think the first one you'll ever see is this guy with he stole a woman's underwear, and it's this big fat guy running around, and he's like on the rooftop of this building, and then he falls off. And he what was it? He gets caught. I think he gets caught by a fucking, what do you call it? You know shit where you put your laundry, like a clothesline or whatever. He gets caught on a clothesline. And he falls down to the fucking ground or whatever. And like that's a way that you learn new skills. Like they added shit like that to Yakuza 3, and that's when it started becoming really tongue in cheek. But yeah, the original two games were a little more dry, certainly. Yeah, Yakuza 3 is when it really starts going off the wall, just this crazy shit, and it just keeps getting better with every new fucking game they put out. Honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah, I've not played any of the games in the series until this, but I have heard like very good things about them, and I definitely am curious to play more in the series now because I did like this. I mean, overall, I had some big complaints, which we'll talk about here, like in the end to wrap things up. But but overall, I did like the game. I thought it was like very unique, like very fun. Like good plot, like great voice acting. So
I forget if this was a thing in the original game, but in this game, in the remake Kiwami, when you fight bosses, when they get down to a certain amount of health, they'll do this thing where they start regenerating health. And you have to use a heat action, but in this game you have to use a specific actually this might be in Yakuza 2, I forget, but it's definitely in the remakes where bosses will start regenerating health and they'll have a specific color of aura around them, and you have to go and use that stance and use a heat action, and you'll actually do a bunch of damage to them. If you don't, I mean, that's fine, you don't have to, but oh, you know what it was in the original game, I believe. At the end, you have to do a heat action, but it's like scripted. Like the person is like staggered or whatever, and you just walk up to them and press triangle, and then it essentially just ends the boss battle for you or whatever. But in this game, like you have a chance of doing that action, but you don't have to do it. But they regenerate health if you don't do it. It's weird and kind of annoying in a sense. It's just Okay. Yeah, it's weird. You'll have to look into that. But that was essentially the last thing I was going to say. There's a lot more to it, but I'm not going to sit here for 30 fucking minutes explaining the rest of the shit. Also, there's a bunch of shit that I'm missing on some of these spin-off games or whatever, but I just found a GIF. This must be from like the ancient Japan one that they made. There's like a Yakuza or like a dragon something, I forget, but it takes place in ancient Japan, and I just found a GIF of the main character of that game slapping some guy's ass while they're both naked hugging each other.
Okay.
Yeah, I really want to play that game. Yeah, like I said, just a bunch of side games we never got over here. Anyway,
okay.
Anyway, yeah, that was about what I want to say about Kiwami.
No, sounds very good.
Yeah, I would suggest that you play it, but you've already played through basically all of the original game, so it would almost kind of feel like you're playing the same game again. So maybe in like a year or two or something, maybe you could pick that game up and definitely see the differences in it. Also, it adds a lot more time to the game because I spent a lot of time on that fucking game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Why don't you tie it up with what you didn't really like about the original game?
Well, I had and to be fair, some of these complaints were just simply complaints about the game being of the age of when it was made, like typical mid 2000s PS2 era game. So we already mentioned the camera angle and the controls.
Yeah.
The controls felt very. The controls felt very. They felt very clunky to me. Not very smooth or something like that. It definitely made some of the fights more difficult, I thought. The overall difficulty of the game I thought was a little bit too high. The regular fights I thought were fine, but a lot of the random encounters in the streets I felt very too difficult for being random encounters.
Really?
But
I feel like the random encounters were fine. I feel like all the other stuff was fucking insanely difficult.
There was
essentially it's PS2 difficult because
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, it's PS2 difficulty. So that's a thing. It's
also
difficult. I agree.
Also, I was playing this. I was playing this thing in emulation, so I was trying to recreate the PS2 as accurately as possible. There's a lot of load time in this game.
I don't think you can really change the settings for stuff like that.
Unfortunately.
And considering that you're reading it off of you have it reading off the hard drive, you're not playing off a disc. I actually played off of my PS2 hard drive myself when I was actually playing the actual game on actual hardware. But it's yeah, I mean the load times weren't too bad, but yeah, reading it off the disc is pretty bad.
Yeah, so I think that's I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, just
the other shit, we definitely need to bring this up. The shit with using weapons when you get the heat actions and shit. I forget if some of this is in the original game, but I know you could get guns and shit. And this game is so weird about how people live and die and stuff like that. In a sense of, in a cutscene, that guy got shot in the shoulder. He's almost dead. But you go into a fucking fight and you shoot a guy 3 times in the stomach, and it hurt him quite a bit, but not enough to knock him out. And it's that's weird. But then you also have shit when you're fighting with things like tantos or just daggers in general or swords. There's one specific heat action where you fucking stab a guy, but then you knee the fucking tanto deeper into his fucking stomach. But then no, he's just knocked out. Shit like that. It's just really weird. And it gets really it gets way more ridiculous in the newer games where there's even more heat actions like that. Where I fucking smacked a guy in the face with a baseball bat. Like I'm playing baseball. I fucking hit him in the fucking face with a baseball bat, an aluminum baseball bat. And I just took half of his health off, and he's fighting me. He got back up and he's fighting me. But there's new heat actions, like in Kiwami 2. There's a funny one where if you're just standing there and there's a woman near you, because you know how people will gang up near you in a circle or whatever and watch you fight. There's one if you're standing near a woman and you have enough heat, you press a triangle, and then the guy, one of the guys tries hitting you, but you step away and he falls over into this woman's chest, and the woman picks his head up and fucking headbutts him, and it fucking takes off a bunch of his health, and it's just so great. There's shit like that they fucking add to the game, and it's wonderful.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
yeah, so the heat system I really didn't mind too much. I thought that was
The problem, like you have to do a lot of upgrading to make it like really viable. But like early on, like your heat drains like a motherfucker if you're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a complaint, but so all in all, I thought that I thought this was a very good open world action game, and it definitely makes me curious to check out more games in the series because I didn't realize there's been a lot of games in the series. But even though a lot of these didn't come out here in the West, even the numbers of games that did come out here in the West is like pretty impressive. So,
yeah.
Did all six like the mainline games come out here in the West?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So, they are making a new game in the series too. It looks like.
Yes, they're also the same. I think the same team or a team that worked on Yakuza before is also working on a similar game, but not in the Yakuza series. Something about like a lawyer or something about law or something like that, which apparently we're gonna also get over here like 5 years later. No, seriously, look at the release dates for the Yakuza games in Japan and over here. Like, yeah, there are a bunch of games that took like around 3 to 5 years to get over here.
Well, basically, I understand. I understand why Sega's been making a ton of these games because this is pretty much about the. This has been this series has pretty much been like what's been keeping them alive recently. As of last year, the series combined worldwide has sold over like 10 million copies. So this is pretty much this is pretty much like what's keeping Sega afloat these days, I think. And yeah, just the number of games and spin-off stuff that they've done this series in a relatively short time, by 13 years, is just super impressive. There's like 6 main games, 8 spin-offs, 3 remakes, books, a movie in Japan, other direct DVD stuff, radio dramas, web TV. It's like crazy.
Oh yeah, they did a lot. Yeah, it's pretty fucking popular.
Yeah. But so the game. So I was looking at some reviews. The game scored pretty highly when we came over here.
Yeah.
A lot of the same like good points, bad points we've already talked about here in the podcast. Metacritic still has the original game scoring 75%, and the aggregate game score of it is 77%. So yeah, those are pretty good marks.
Yeah.
Is the original game cheap to get these days? If somebody wants to pick one up, George.
Well, I'll let you know that the original game I've seen sold between $14.99 and $44.99 sealed.
That held its value pretty well for a PS2 game.
I got mine. I got this and Yakuza 2 for $20 a piece.
Not bad.
Off of eBay, like a couple of years ago. 3 years ago? Something like that. If you're looking for Kiwami, which is probably the more recommended version, a physical copy for PS4 goes between $6.50 and $32.94. The digital version on the PlayStation Store is $19.99, and when it comes out on Steam, actually you can pre-purchase it now on Steam for $17.99. So you get the best price off of Steam if you have a good enough computer, but if not, you can buy it digitally, or you could even buy it used off of eBay. This game actually originally came out as $40. But Yakuza Kiwami 2 actually originally came out at $20. So you can go pick that up as well for $20. Also, interested in Yakuza 0? That is $20 as well.
Yes, and Humble Bundle right now is offering the game for free if you sign up for them for their monthly membership thing.
Yes, you are actually not wrong on that.
So, which is a pretty good deal.
Oh, certainly. I would pay, it's a steal at twice the price,
Yeah. You're also getting Tom Clancy's Division as well, also with that.
Which is, I would argue, is a good game, but I don't know who's playing that anymore because the second game's coming out somewhat soon.
So, it's curious that the PS4 version of the game is cheaper than the original version of the game. It's usually the other way around.
Eh.
I guess maybe that just shows how well the original games has held its value pretty well.
It might be like more of a collector's item now, maybe.
True. Yeah.
Also,
yeah,
like again, that price was sealed. I also saw an unsealed game that was still around that price, so I don't know.
Interesting. But yeah. So, yep, definitely. I'm sure we're going to be covering other games in this series at some point. So, we will be coming back. So, like, we will be coming back here before long. So, but yeah. So, I don't. I'm glad I had enough time to play this game because this is a pretty long game. I think I probably put in like 50 hours altogether on this. So
really,
yeah. So
I put in a lot more because of the side shit that they added.
That's true. Yep. So, but yeah. So it's a fun game. I'm definitely curious to see the remake because I think it should be fun. George said the remake fixes most of the issues and complaints that people had about the original game. So,
it also adds a lot more to it. So
yep. So that's always cool. Yeah. Final thought. Like we talked about this before. I don't mind a remake if it's done well. Like they actually added in like a bunch of stuff and actually like made it like worthwhile to pay the extra money for it.
There's nothing wrong with a remake, but you have to have bullet points. Like one of the bullet points is it has to be at least like fucking 10 plus years old.
Which
also
in this case, so it's fine.
Stuff like that. Stuff like, I mean, obviously, if they're remaking it, they're gonna remaster it in some kind of level.
Well, there's also a difference between like remake and remaster. So because the game got remastered with the PS3,
right, but when you remake a game, you also still remaster it in some
you do
in some sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So
you're right. I was just saying there's a difference.
Yeah, no, of course. So I have to do some of that, but then on top of that, like, why not add side stuff? But like, there are fucking games that are like, oh, this is a remaster of this game. It's like, but that game came out like 3 years ago. We're not really in that era anymore. But like,
no.
But there was a time where like remasters were like fucking coming out all the time. It's like, but these games aren't even that old. And then there was a point where there was like remasters of the remasters. So it's like, oh, this is like the remaster of the remaster that was on PS3, but now it's on PS4. And it's like, stop it. Anyway.
Yep, you're right. I mean, like, there are differences. There are differences. They used to call those like director's cut versions, like they used to like include the DLC, like whatnot.
Or they would add stuff. Like Resident Evil Director's Cut added the DualShock support and
that was a big one.
Shit. Yep. Anyway, with that, thanks for listening. Greg, thanks for playing that fucking game for so long.
Well, like I said, glad I had the time.
Yeah, we started what? Was it like November we had you start playing that game?
Not quite that early. But
maybe it was early December or something.
Early December, yeah. Almost 2 months.
Yeah, so, people are busy, so I gave you a heads up and I was like, hey, we're going to cover this next year. So, yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to make an announcement that we closed the Patreon. I did plan on going, just talking about this a lot on this episode, but this episode's really long, so I'll still announce it and I'll still say something about it. I just closed it. I really don't feel like we were doing it justice. I don't feel like we or I was doing enough for everything. So on top of just a bunch of other stuff that's going on in life right now, I just decided to close it, at least for now. I don't know. Maybe we'll open it back up at some point, but thanks for everybody who was supporting us. You won't get charged because I shut it down before the next charge point. So, thanks for that. Anyway, on top of that, thanks for listening. Like I said, our next game is Greg's choice. He chose Front Mission 4. And this is one of those games that if he didn't choose it at some point, I would have chosen it. I've been playing that game here and there for a while now. Been sprinkling it in a little bit. And I like it a lot more than Front Mission 3. So I'll just say that.
Yep, like I feel the opposite. So this is going to be an interesting
Okay.
episode.
Yeah, no. Either way, I'm sure you will think it's still a very good game. Anyway, if you're interested in getting in contact with us, you could do that through a different amount of ways. One of them is getting access to Discord. You can join our Discord server. The link will be in the description of this episode, as always. Or you can email us, PlayStationPower@theboxfort.net. That is PlayStationPower@THEBOXFORT.net. We also have a Facebook group. Just look up PlayStation Power. You'll be able to find us. And we have a YouTube. Just look up PlayStation Power. Video of the gameplay while the podcast audio is in the background there. Gives you an idea of how the game is played and what's it like and so on and so forth. Like I said before, yeah, the Yakuza stuff I already started working on, so yeah, I still have some work to do, it looks like, because I thought maybe the episode would go on for an hour or something. I think we're running long. I know we talked a little bit before we actually started the podcast, so I don't know. Well, maybe it'll balance out. Who knows? Anyway, you can also find me on Twitter at Mr. Chief. That is at MISTURCHEF. And Greg, what about you?
Well, you can find us on our Facebook page. We also have a Discord server. If you want to, you can also use the email. The email me that we also use for the Super NES podcast. The other podcast that George and I do together. That email is the SNES podcast at yahoo.com.
All right, and with that, go polish your sword and stab people in the stomach, but don't kill them, because that's how fights work in Yakuza.
Yep.
Yep. Goodbye.
Take care, all.